Hey guys, how's it going? It is Travis Mortz with the Foresthill Film Lab. It's been a couple months since I made a video as usual, and I'm back again. So basically, I've had a really busy summer this summer, and on top of that, let I let one of my daughter's friends from school basically use my digital camera. She was going to like a summer photography camp on the coast. So on the last day of school, I let her use my digital camera and didn't touch base with her family to get the camera back until the first day of school. So basically, I spent all summer not making YouTube videos, which it's fine with me. But because of that, I got a lot of stuff to update you guys on, and I've had a lot of people asking me for videos. So here I am. I'm back, and basically, what this video is I just want to give you guys like a little bit of update on what I've been doing, but also. Yesterday, I posted like a story asking you guys what kind of videos you wanted to see, and I got a bunch of awesome suggestions. So I'm just gonna kind of touch on all those different suggestions a little bit, and just make this like a multifaceted film photography video. So that's basically it. Let's get started, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about my summer, and we'll jump into some of the suggestions I had for the channel, and talk about some film photography. All right, so I'm just gonna try to sum up some of the stuff I've been doing this summer because you guys may have seen it on my Instagram, and I actually did some really exciting stuff that I really feel like I should be sharing with you guys, but I wasn't. So earlier in the year, I got a call from my friend Richie out at Woodward East, which is in Pennsylvania. It's like the biggest Woodward camp in the world. It's the main one, and I got invited to come out for a special film week. So, of course, I said yes, and I was very excited. And I managed to meet up with a friend of mine, Dave, who lives in Pennsylvania. He's a PA underscore Dave on Instagram, and he was one of my YouTube subscribers. You know, no different than anybody else watching this who reached out to me about some photography stuff, and we made a connection. And long story short, Dave picked me up from the airport, and we went to Woodward together for a week. Thankfully, Dave had all the film equipment he needed because he had built up his inventory of Jobo and all that good stuff. So I flew out to Pennsylvania, and we loaded up Dave's car with all of his film developing stuff, and we went out to Woodward. And we ended up having like 15 students in the class, and all of the interns that were at the camp, all the kids working in the digital media lab, were also um, interested in film already. So ultimately, throughout the week, we ended up developing over 30 rolls of film, scanning them for the kids. And, some of these kids were so excited about film that they weren't even shooting their regular camera the whole week. We had a little girl from Hong Kong. Her name was Chin Chin. Chin Chin was shooting a Nikon F all week with no light meter, and she was metering everything perfect just based on me teaching her the Sunny 16 rule. And it was amazing. We had two boys that didn't shoot a digital photo all week. At the end of the week, they had a slideshow of 15 images that they had to put up from camp. And these two boys shot nothing but film for their whole entire slideshow. And like I don't know, I couldn't be more proud of those guys. We sent them home with a developing tank and a bottle of Cinestill mono bath. And so those kids are now started their film journey because I flew out to Woodward to teach them. So really, really awesome stuff. I went out there and I brought my Frankenstacks. I primarily shot instant film while I was there because I kind of wanted to do something different than everyone else was doing since they were all shooting film now. So I'll share with you guys some of those photos kind of while I'm talking. But yeah, it was really, really awesome. We got over 15 kids, 15 new kids shooting their first roll of film ever. And they went home with a knowledge of photography. I taught them history. I taught them about Dorothea Lange and Sally Mann. I taught them about street photography. And so, yeah, it was really, really cool. So that was like kind of the big highlight of my summer. I spent 10 days in Pennsylvania with a new friend that I met, basically because of my YouTube channel. And yeah, it was really, really awesome. So that was definitely the highlight of my summer as far as film photography goes. And when I flew home, I came home, and about 2 weeks later, there was the Vans Huntington Beach BMX Pro Cup, which is like it's a BMX contest on the beach. Last year, I went out there and I shot it all on 4x5 with my speed graphic. And so I contacted my buddy who works for Endless Magazine, or he owns and runs Endless Magazine, and he got me credentials to go shoot it again. So, like, kind of on a last minute, like, I think it was probably like a week notice, I got a bunch of my friends to load up in my camper, my big RV, and we drove down to Huntington Beach, and I shot the whole event with my Frankenstacks, as well as some 35 millimeter. So I'll show you guys some of those photos here. But yeah, it was really, really cool to be able to go out there and bring an old camera with me. And I was actually shooting photos of the pros, and, you know, some of the photos I was actually letting them keep. So, you know, there's a lot of photos I took that day that I don't even get to share with you guys because I gave them away. But to me, that's the essence of photography, is being able to share it with someone. And, you know, the excitement on someone's face when I hand them a Polaroid, or, you know, an Instax wide frame, and they ask me, can I keep this? So, you know, I kind of have to say yes. So it's really, really, really awesome stuff that I was able to go out there and show the BMX world a bit of a different side of photography that us film photographers are a little more familiar with. So, anyways, like I said, I'll show you guys some of the photos while I'm talking. But that was pretty much my summer. I didn't do a whole lot of other stuff besides that. I have been shooting quite a bit, but nothing out of the ordinary. So anyways, that's that. I kind of wanted to make it quick, but I wanted to look at my phone. I saved some of the suggestions that you guys sent in yesterday, and there was some really awesome stuff in there, and some things that I really couldn't make a whole video about, so I'm just going to kind of segment it in this video. So I'm going to pull those up, and we'll check out some of your guys' suggestions. Alright, so yeah, yesterday I put out like a Instagram story. I've been really trying to use like the questions feature to like do something interesting instead of like, ask me what I like, you know. I wanted to like make it cool stuff, so I've tried to make stories about photo history, or, you know, trying to gain insight from my following. And you guys have really responded like so awesome. So yesterday I put one out, what would you like a video about? And I got a ton of people saying books, books, books. And I love doing book videos, but I didn't want to just like nerd out and then come back with like a full-on book video after you guys haven't seen me for 4 months. That being said, I am going to show you guys a couple new books that I found recently. And also, hold on, there was one in here that I'm just going to kind of double it up. So yeah, you guys, MK3 Dylan said, books, I always love your book reviews. They're always in depth, but they don't reveal too much. Someone said, books would be magical. And then someone else said, they were saying that they wanted to know about Edward Weston. They were excited about Edward Weston, and they wanted to hear something about him, something cool about Edward Weston. So I grabbed some books. But anyway, so these are a couple of books that I have found in the past week. And this one, oh my goodness. This is a book that I actually took a history of photography class in college, and this was the course book for it. So like the whole entire course was revolved around this one single book, a whole college course. And basically everything I know about the history of photography is coming from that class. And so basically everything I know about the history of photography is this book, ultimately. So back when I took the class, I had this book as my, you know, course guide or whatever, but I don't know where the book has gone since then. A few weeks ago I found a paperback, and then just now I found this hardback for $3 at Goodwill, and I had to buy it. But for anyone who has not seen this book, this is, look at it, says right here. Since its first publication in 1937, this lucid and scholarly chronicle of the history of photography has been hailed as a classic work on the subject. No other book and no other author have managed to relate the aesthetic evolution of the art of photography to its technical innovations with such an absorbing combination of clarity, scholarship, and enthusiasm. So this was written by Beaumont Newhall, who is a famously known historian of photography. He was good friends with Ansel Adams. Him and his wife helped write a book on the F-64 group. He knows his shit, basically. So Beaumont Newhall wrote this book, and it's got everything. It's got everything from Nicephore Niepce, and it even actually teaches you about the camera before the latent image, before we actually invented photography. This book goes and predates that and actually tells you about the camera as a tool before it was made to make images. So, very cool. They've got everything in here. So this is a really awesome book that if you don't have it, it's a great place to start. Like, it teaches you everything about the history of photography, and as well as important photographers of the era and all that good stuff. This book I found on Monday, actually. And I have a lot of Ansel Adams books, like, you know, his standard stuff. And I even have some weird stuff, but this is one I'd never seen before. This is The Making of 40 Photographs. And so at first I thought it maybe sounded kind of boring, but once I opened it up and read the first page, I realized what this was, is it was a detailed recollection that Ansel Adams had 50 years after a lot of these photos were made. So basically, you know, he made all these famous photographs, and throughout his life and career, they became popular and, you know, became part of his famous body of work. And so about 50 years after all these things were made, before he died, he went back and he wrote this book, and he talks about each photograph as he remembers taking it, what he remembers about it, so on and so forth. So this was one of the ones that really struck me. This is a photo of Alfred Stieglitz. And in here he says, "This is one of my first photographs with the Zeiss Contax 35mm camera given to me by a Carl Zeiss representative." And so this was in 1935. So this was actually near the beginning of 35mm photography. And so him shooting this photo of Alfred Stieglitz on 35mm was very experimental at the time. 35mm format had not picked up yet. And so in this write-up, he talks about how the 35mm format was used for journalists and things like that, and it wasn't made to use a fine print. It wasn't, you wouldn't use it to make a fine print because it was such a small format. And he also talks about how he prefers the Contax camera over Leica. Let's see what he says. "I preferred the operational design of the Zeiss Contax. The Leica was also a superb instrument, of course. The original design of the instrument was refined on the basis of the practical experience of German photographers using pilot cameras." And so he actually preferred a Contax over a Leica. And he says, Stieglitz remarked, "If I had a camera like that, I would close this place up and be out on the streets of the city." Then he added, "I guess it's too late for me. I leave the job to you young people." So here's Stieglitz, a fine art photographer who shoots large, super large format, nothing but excellent, you know, museum quality stuff. And he said, if I had a camera like that rangefinder, I would close up shop and just be out on the streets. And so that was interesting to me because this was in 1935, before the real boom of street photography. Street photography really blew up in like the 50s and the 60s. You know, back in the 30s, it was still very much fine art, documentary, things like that. Large format was very predominant. So I thought that was cool. This whole book is basically him talking about famous images and how they were made. And, oh, here's another good one. Let's see what he said. He talks about how just because you take many images and just because one is better than the rest, it doesn't mean that it's a good photo. So he was taking photos of moving waves, and he said, you know, of course one of these images will be better than all the others, but that does not necessarily mean it's a good image. So I thought that was really cool, a good way to look at your own work. Just because one's better than others doesn't mean it's good. Anyways, that was really cool. So someone else said that they were really interested in Edward Weston, so I grabbed a few of my Weston books. I'm just going to kind of blab about him a little bit. This is the Edward Weston book I found recently for, like, I think I gave the guy $5 for it. And it's just basically a portfolio of his work, as well as a biography written by Ben Maddow. And so he talks about he talks about Weston, and then you also get to see some of his most popular work. Let me see if I can find the photo I like most of Weston's. There's two photos. I like the nude, this one. This image is so magical, her pose and everything. And I don't know if any of you guys have tried to recreate this image or if you've tried to recreate this pose, but it's very difficult. So anyways, this is an excellent image, very special, 1936. And then the other image of Weston's that really is special that I like a lot is the bell pepper. I don't know that I'll find it. Oh, I gotta find it in here. And his bell pepper image, I don't know what it is about it, but it's so special. He made it like in a bowl in his kitchen for hours and hours. He exposed this bell pepper, and it's got the slightest imperfection on it, and the light is so perfect. I wish I could find it. Edward Weston specialized in taking pictures of like vegetables and making them look like the human body. So, or even just different shapes, and it just kind of had like a humanly feel to it. So here's the human body, and then you'll have some shells. See these shells? They just feel very, I don't know, animated maybe. Something special about them. But the bell pepper is a photograph like that, in which it's a bell pepper, but it looks like a human body. I'm surprised it's not in here, but you have to look it up. Anyways, the other book I grabbed is the Daybooks of Edward Weston. This is actually his own writing, talking about his trip to Mexico and talking about basically his technique and what he's thinking day to day. And this is like the best way to get inspired by a photographer, is to read the things that they actually wrote and hear about how they actually felt about what they were making. So there's that. There's some books. There's some Edward Weston. Let's see what else people asked me about. Someone else said just life stuff. I covered that. Scanning tips. Oh man, I wish I had some good scanning tips, but scanning's pretty much always a pain in the ass. I would say get some microfiber anti-static gloves. Get a blower like this and clean your scanner every single time you put film in it. Like put film in, clean it, put film in, clean it. And then those gloves though, microfiber anti-static, it makes it so you could actually touch the film as much as you want, and if there's dust on it, you could actually just wipe it off with your finger, which is like amazing, like super amazing. So I would say if you're using a flatbed, get some gloves. Let's see. Someone said how someone's work has inspired you and what that inspiration led to in terms of your output. Man, I have a good one. So I've probably told you guys this, but I tell everybody this, but if you haven't heard it, I'll tell you again. But many years ago, I met an old man through Craigslist. I was going to look at some camera stuff, and he had like the most amazing cameras of the 60s. He had like a Hasselblad, he had a really special Leica, and he had a Linhof 4x5. And I asked him, what did you do for work? Why do you have these cameras from the 60s? And he said that he was Dorothea Lange's assistant. And so I was blown away by that, and I thought to myself, why am I meeting this person through Craigslist right now? This guy's Dorothea Lange's assistant from the 60s, and I really couldn't wrap my head around it at the time. And then a few years later, he called me and said that PBS came to his house to do a documentary, and it was a documentary on Dorothea Lange, and if you watch the documentary, he's like one of the first guys in the documentary speaking, and it like for lack of a better term, that fucked me up, because I was like, oh my god, how do I know someone that knows Dorothea Lange? Like, that's insane. Like, I could talk to this person and be like, yo, how was Dorothea like this? And he would tell me about her. And so for me, that like really jump started things for me. At that moment, I really like dove headfirst into my film photography. I dove headfirst into documenting my family, and I really used that as like inspiration. Like, I couldn't ignore it, you know. I couldn't just meet this guy that was Dorothea Lange's assistant and that's in her documentary and then be like, cool, I'm gonna go shoot some school portraits now. Like, definitely not. Like, definitely had to do something different, and that's kind of what started all of this stuff. And so, as far as something that inspired me, that really really inspired me, and like even thinking about it now gives me the goosebumps. So it's still working, and like right behind the camera, you can't see it, but I have a huge poster of the migrant mother photograph. And so it's like, I don't know, like Dorothea Lange, something about her career and her life has driven me to a point of mania almost. But because of that, I try to share it with everybody else. I want to like tell all you guys, like, you should be crazy too, because it's awesome. So there's that. That's my bit of inspiration. Let's see. Techniques. I'll have to do some more technique videos, maybe talking about pushing or pulling film. Information on large format, how to do black and white contact prints. So I grabbed this thing actually for that specific question. That's from Sherman Boykin. He's a buddy of mine through the internet. So back in the day, Ansel Adams was master darkroom printer, but he actually did a lot of contact printing. He didn't, like, even in his book, he talks about how enlarging was a whole different skill than contact printing. So contact printing, you would actually put your 4x5 negative in this holder, this glass right here, and then you put your paper right behind it, and you just put it down on the table like this. So you can put it any which way. And you would expose it with contrasted light, with, you would stop down the light and all that good stuff still. But the image is touching the paper, so it's a perfect one-to-one print. And then while you were doing that, while you were printing, you could do your dodging and burning actually just right here to adjust exposure. You could dodge and burn the light actually hitting this frame. So yeah, this is pretty neat. But this is how you do 4x5 contact printing. I liked that question, and I had the tool for it, so I wanted to show you guys. So I think that's pretty cool. I've tried it before, and my paper was shit. So that's pretty much the end of that. Let's see. F3 review. I don't have a Nikon F3. I don't really care for the F3, to be honest with you guys. I'm a mechanical Nikon shooter. So I like the F2, the FM2, the FM, the F. Cinestill DF96 review. I have got a bottle of the Cinestill, and I've developed one roll of film with it. I really got to do some more testing on it, and then maybe I'll talk to you guys about it. Let's see. Do a review on the Bronica SQA. I never had one of those, unfortunately. How to not be intimidated by really exceptional work, and how to be inspired rather than intimidated. Okay, that's an interesting one. To me, I look at all the greats of the past, and I hold their work to such a high standard that I almost see it as unreachable. So I too am intimidated by the great work of other photographers, but I use that basically that borderline as a goal. I hope to reach that. Dorothea Lange was an amazing photographer, and I could actually use the same tools she was using, and I could photograph people the same way she was photographing people. And so I use her as an inspiration to try to be as good as I can towards that career, rather than being intimidated by it. So if you see someone's work that's really good and it is intimidating, don't think about it as intimidating. Like this is a weird example, but if you saw a photo that I shot and you thought it was really sick, and you're like, wow, like, you're awesome, that's sick, I would tell you, like, you should just shoot that film then. Because I'm not doing anything special. Like, I'm shooting the same equipment you guys are shooting. I'm shooting the same film you guys are shooting. And I'm just putting different subjects in the image. So, that goes for all of us. We all have the same opportunity to make greatness. It's just a matter of using the same tools or whatever inspires you. So, all right, I got like 2 more things I'll show you guys, and then I'll wrap it up, because I know my videos are always like way too damn long because I don't make them but every 4 months. So, creating a budget darkroom, I would say get on Craigslist. Just search darkroom. Just type in darkroom, and like some dude's gonna be getting rid of it all the time, everywhere. So just look, and if you find an enlarger, there's gonna be developing trays and tanks and thermometers and all that shit that goes with it. Like, nobody just has an enlarger, because it's all a bundle. So find one piece and you'll find the rest of them. The other one was good photographer habits, proper way to store film, and file management. Well, the proper way to store film is to sleeve it up and put it in binders. That's how I like doing it. But as you guys can see from like my pack on right here, I'm also very behind on sleeving some stuff. But for me, it's binders and folders and sleeves of negatives. That's how I like to do it. I even have some stuff like that gets away, but that's okay. And so these are just a couple of my film folders. Basically just negative sleeves. These are archival negative sleeves, so they're acid free. They're not going to damage your negatives over time. That's what you want to make sure of. But I mean, they're all archival. You're not going to find one that's not. Here's my 4x5 binder. There's no other way to store these. So yeah, that's how I do it. I've heard other techniques in the past. My friend Steve Abbott, SA Photos on Instagram, he told me his file storage, he likes to cut them all up and scan them, and then he just puts them into a shoebox. And so he's kind of setting up like a Vivian Meyer thing for the future, so someone can find all these negatives and it'll be like a jackpot. So you guys could do that too. I would definitely not recommend it, but it works for some of us. So yeah, binders are definitely the way to go. And the last one was do a loadout video, like what gear you always use. I thought that'd be fun, and I'm going to try to do it quick. So this is my daily bag. This is my Dom key. If you don't have a Dom key bag, go buy one. It's like the best thing in the world. My Dom key bag holds absolutely everything that I need it to. I could put a 4x5 camera in here. I could put my Frankenstacks. I could put a Pentax 6.7. Everything. So look at it. I have water in here. It's like my purse. It's kind of like my man purse. Let's see. Oh look, I got some diapers because I am a dad. So I gotta have the diapers in the in the bag. Let's see. In the bag here, I've got a bunch of like ice cream wrappers and old boarding passes from like trips I've been on, and then Polaroid negatives. So this is like the kind of trash I accumulate, like just boarding passes. And then, so I always like to have my Leica M3. That's like my daily shooter, my clunker, if you will. I got a Summicron 50mm on there. Nothing too special, just, you know, an old M3. And then I also like to carry my Nikon SLR because, let's face it, there is some jobs that a rangefinder does not do the best, and so I like to have my Nikon for the longer lenses and for my fisheye lens. This FM2 goes up to a 4,000th of a second, so it's great for action. I got the motor drive on there in case I feel like being lazy. And I always just kind of have like film in here. Like there's some Kodak. Here's a roll of T-Max. These are like some old rolls of film that I have if I ever have 120 film or 120 cameras in there. And then yeah, that's about it. I just got rolls of film. And so this is just kind of my daily kit. I don't really leave home without it. It's always in the car. And then I end up carrying it in the store with me like a weirdo because I don't want someone to steal it. So then I'm just carrying a purse around all the time. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I didn't really know what else to make a video on, so I just made a video about everything. I'll be back again soon, hopefully. And thank you guys so much for watching. And keep on shooting.